This man's name is Dick Harper. He is an employee at a well-known media company in the United States. He has a son and a beautiful wife named Jane. Jane worked in a travel agency as a customer service. Dick's family life was perfect. They have a good career, live in an elite housing estate, have a cute pet dog, and even the grass in his house was imported from Brazil. One day, at the office, his secretary told him that the CEO named Jack called him to his office. He was happy to hear that. He was sure that the reason the CEO called him was that he would be promoted. Arriving in Jack's office, Dick met with the company deputy leader named Frank. It turned out that he was right. Frank said that Dick would be promoted to deputy director of communications. Not only that, but Dick was also invited to have lunch at Jack's house the next day. Dick never thought that among hundreds of employees, Jack had chosen him to be the deputy director of communications. The next day, Dick went to Jack's house. While having lunch, as the new deputy director of communications, Jack gave Dick his first assignment, which was to be the spokesperson of the company for the stock market TV show The Day After Tomorrow. Although he didn't understand anything about the stock market, he confidently accepted the assignment. That night, at home, he told the good news to his wife. Since he had finally been promoted and would get a bigger salary per month, he asked Jane to stop working so that she can focus on taking care of the children at home. Jane was really happy. She has been tired of working and wanted to be a housewife. Finally, Dick's first assignment as the deputy director of communication began. While broadcasting the stock exchange market, the TV host asked why the stock price of Dick's company had dropped significantly. Confused, he kept his composure and tried to look calm and confident. He answered that the company was fine. Even all financial reports have been submitted to the state tax department. All he told were against the data shown in the corner of the screen, showing that the company's stock price had massively declined. The company's stock is falling badly. In the afternoon, when returning to the office, Dick wondered why everyone in the office was seen busy destroying the company's financial data. In Jack's office, Jack explained that in fact, their company was on the verge of bankruptcy because there was a corrupt employee who took away a very large amount of money from the company. Jack also said that he had never reported the company's financial data to the state tax department. Because of the live broadcast earlier, the tax department was planning to come to investigate the corruption case there. After explaining all that, Jack hastily left Dick there, who remained stunned in position. When Dick came home, Jane threw a party to celebrate her husband's promotion. In the middle of the celebration, Dick dared to tell his wife that his company had just gone bankrupt. Jane panicked, but luckily, Dick managed to calm his wife down by telling her that he would get a lot of severance payment, but after months of waiting for the severance payment, it was never been disbursed. So far, Dick's family only survived using the savings for their child's education tuition because they haven't got a new job. One day, Dick got a call from a big company asking him to come the next day. The next day, with a happy heart and hope, Dick went there and got ready for a job interview, but when he entered the HRD room, the employee laughed at him despite him being quiet all the time. Not long after that, other employees appeared. It turned out that the reason Dick was called there was not for a job interview. They just wanted to take a photo with him because the video from his broadcast on TV had gone viral and become a meme. After returning home, Jane told Dick that their savings were running low. She even sold their imported grass in the yard for extra money. Jane then said that they couldn't back off from any kind of job. It was not the time to be picky about the job. They both had to look for any kind of job so that they could pay the bills. When Jane just finished talking, the electricity in the house suddenly turned off because it's been 3 months in arrears. Like it or not, the next day, they had to apply for a job. Dick applied to work in the supermarket, while Jane taught gymnastics, despite having no experience in that field. They've only worked for a few hours until they were fired. Dick was accused of harassing a customer while Jane accidentally kicked a student in the face.
Now I got you. Get this. When I came in the door, you were all up in my goodies.
1 month passed. Dick's family life was getting more difficult day by day. Many things were sold, they lost many of their assets, they had to exchange their expensive car for old cars, and other miseries. The next day, Dick tried to work as a painter. After a long wait, Dick finally got one order, but unfortunately, when he was about to leave, another painter forcefully took over his job. He had to queue again with another painter for another job. While playing cards to kill time while waiting for a paint job, suddenly the immigration officer came to catch all the workers, including Dick. The workers there were all illegal immigrants. On the other hand, in a laboratory, Jane's face looked swollen from volunteering to test a new skincare drug. While listening to the researcher's instructions, Dick called her. On the phone, Dick asked Jane to pick him up at the American border prison. Later that night, Jane picked Dick up in the prison. There, Dick and the other worker tried to escape the prison. The police tried to arrest all of them, but Dick and the others managed to escape. When Dick and Jane got home, Jane, who was very tired from all the problems that day, decided to sleep. When Jane was sleeping, Dick silently looked at his wife's swollen face. He felt guilty for all this time only giving trouble and couldn't make his beloved family happy. Dick was determined that starting that night, he would try even harder to make his family happier, even though he had to be a criminal for that.
My God, I'm really sorry for having offended thee.
In the morning, when Jane woke up, she was shocked to see her husband's covered with soil. When she asked what happened to him, Dick said that he had stolen some grass to plant in the yard last night. Looking at her husband's sacrifice, Jane was touched. Later on, when Dick checked the mailbox, there was a letter from the bank containing a warning for their mortgage payment. He was given 24 hours to pay it or the bank would confiscate the house. That night, Dick planned to rob a mini-market with a toy gun. At first, Jane laughed because she thought her husband was just joking, but seeing his serious face, she couldn't help but help her husband. They carried out their mission in a convenience store. Jane didn't believe that the plan would work. Dick then entered the store and was about to pull out his gun to threaten the cashier, just when the cashier changed shift. When he realized what was in front of him, the cashier that once was someone smaller than him turned into a muscular beast. Fear of the big guy in front of him, he decided to not carry it out and ran away. The two of them immediately tried to rob another supermarket, and again failed. Instead of robbing, he didn't even have the heart to continue. He instead helped a granny carry her groceries. When they were about to give up, Dick suddenly saw a man in an ATM. He then tried to rob the man by pointing his decoy gun. Surprisingly, the man he was about to rob was his ex-co-worker. He then pretended that he was pranking him and then left him immediately. Desperate, they decided to rob a small store as their last effort. With the help of Jane, Dick finally managed to take the cashier's money and run away from there. Since last night, both of them kept doing robberies, one after another.
No whipped cream on hers! No whipped cream! Hun, these are non-fat muffins. That's good, that's good. Okay, nobody try to follow us, and I'll tell you how!
Slow but sure, they managed to stabilize their finances. They could pay their bills, buy a new TV, and even import grass from Brazil for their yard. One day, they planned to rob a well-known bank. They made a different plan from the previous robbery. This time, to avoid suspicion, they disguised themselves as officers from the government and said that they were there to check the money. The robbery initially went smoothly until two masked robbers entered the bank. Soon after, the police came and arrested the two robbers. When the robbers' masks were opened, Dick was shocked to see that the masked robbers were his co-workers from his office. At night, at the house, Dick and Jane watched the news when some of Dick's colleagues were arrested. Not only the ones from the afternoon, but there was also news about the other former employees of one company who became criminals to earn a living. When all of his former employees were in trouble, Jack was on vacation, hunting for ducks in Georgia. The news then changed to news about Dick, who was suspected of corruption. Jane tried to calm her husband down, but because he was too panicked, he screamed out of the house and went to the bar to calm himself down. In the bar, instead of calming down, since he was too drunk, he caused more trouble there.
Wow! Masters of the universe.
It's a nice piece of hair.
Financial Summit! I'm a corporate puppet!
Jane then came to control her drunk husband. In the middle of that event, Dick saw Frank, who was also drunk. Dick, who felt that Frank must be the culprit behind all this trouble, rushed after him. After being caught, Frank tried to convince Dick that he was being framed. Jack is the one who had taken away the company money worth $400 million and then slandered him. At that moment, Frank was also looking for a way to report Jack to the police. Dick felt that both he and Frank shared the same fate. He offered cooperation to destroy Jack. The next day, at the cafe, Dick, Jane, and Frank were planning on something. Based on the information they got, Jack was about to transfer all the company money into his personal account the day after tomorrow. Dick then got an idea to switch the transfer form that Jack had with the one they would make. They planned to transfer all the money into Dick's personal account. Hearing Dick's idea, Frank suddenly agreed. The day finally came. They carried out their plan. Jane and Dick were about to enter the bank while Frank was guarding outside. Just when Dick was about to get out of the car, Dick dropped his form, the wind blew the paper and it flew into a lawnmower. Jane got into an argument with her husband and told him to make a new form using the computer inside the bank. They changed the plan. Dick would make a new form while Jane tried to buy time until Dick finished his part of the plan.
Dick. I got it. Got it.
Finished making the form. Dick accidentally met Jack. On the other side, Jane managed to steal Jack's form, but when she was about to run away, she was caught by the bank staff. Seeing his wife in trouble, Dick slowly walked over to Jane and then exchanged the form from behind their back. Their plan was a success. They just need to wait for Jack to sign the form. Unfortunately, Jack realized that the account number on the form was wrong, and the transaction was finally cancelled. When he was about to leave, Jack met him at the exit while Jane hid behind the wall. While smiling cynically, Jack said that he already knew all Dick's plans. He threatened Dick to report him to the police if he still bothered him and his plan. Hearing that triggered Dick's anger. He immediately pulled out his gun and with teary eyes, said he didn't care anymore. He said that being in prison was not a big deal to him anymore. As a result of Jack's actions, Dick and all of his coworkers are now in ruins. All this time they had desperately tried to use all kinds of ways to earn money to support their families because their severance payments had not been paid to them. Even after decades of hard work, advancing the company, they never received appreciation from the company. He threatened Jack to give him a check. No matter the amount, he said it would help him and his family. Jack, who tried to avoid any problem, agreed to give a check worth $100 and immediately left. Jane then came to calm down her sad husband, but it turned out to be Dick's plan. He was just acting to get Jack's autograph. Jane used to graduate from painting school. With an evil smile, Dick told her to fake the autograph. The next day at Jack's home, when he wanted to leave, he was shocked to see so many reporters and former employees come and cheered for him. Amid the confusion, Dick appeared and told Jack to get out of the car. Dick then gave him some sheets of paper he had arranged. Just like what Jack had done to him, Dick was now framed Jack to do a live broadcast for a news program on TV. On the news, it was reported that the day before, Jack had just distributed $400 million to pay all of his former employees' severance payments, which has not been disbursed. Not only that, but with the return of the $400 million, the corruption case was closed. The news anchor praised Jack's generosity and asked what Jack wanted to say. Seeing his former boss confused, Dick ordered him to read the paper he gave him earlier. When he read the paper, the text inscribed in the paper was the thing Jack should have said to all his employees who had worked hard for the company, which was a thank you and appreciation for his former employees.